Now, these folks are from Boone,
North Carolina.
And do you sing full time?
We sing full time, but we're bivocational. My brother Tim pastors a church.
You're what?
We're bivocational. That means we do other things besides sing. That means like if you just didn't do this like on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, if you was a Walmart greeter, then you would be bivocational.
I see. Well, I'm available.
So you're available. Yeah. And you'd be given. But what time that we're not singing, my brother Tim pastors the Westview Baptist Church in Boone. Tranda works in the recording studio and does backup vocals. And I work in a funeral home. I'm an undertaker. Bill, I'd be the last man to let you down.
Oh,
People at home say, Tim will bless you and I'll dress you. That's what they say when they're just going down the street. Bill, I got to tell you something. The funniest thing that's ever happened to me. You know, you and Mark Lowry have certainly showed with America that life is too short not to laugh and have fun. And you all do a great job making people laugh. Let me tell you what happened. I was home. We'd finished up a road trip, and I'd got home on Monday. And I was sitting there in my chair drinking a glass of Tang, eating a Pop-Tart, and watching Montel. And about 9:30, the telephone rang, and it was the man at the funeral home. And he said, Tony, he said, Carl Swift has passed away, and the family wants you to come sing for the funeral. Miss Claudella wants you to come sing. And I said, well, I'll be glad to do it. And I said, what time does it start? He said, the funeral starts at 10 o'clock. I said, it's 9:30. He said, then you better get to moving. So I showered and shaved, put my suit on, went rushing over to the funeral home. Now, I don't know how you fine folks here in Alabama do it, but at home, Bill, we got a little room where the family meets in before they're escorted into the chapel to start the funeral. And I went rushing in there, and I put my arms around Claudella, and I said, honey, I'm so sorry to hear of Carl's death. She said, Tony, she said, I'm just glad you're here. And she said, it was Carl's request that you'd sing for his funeral. I said, okay, I'll be glad to do it. And I said, Claudella, I want to do anything I can to bring comfort to you. And whatever songs you want me to sing, I'll be glad to sing them. And she said, Tony, I want you to sing Sweet Beulah Land. And I said, okay. And she said, Tony, I want you to sing How Great Thou Art. And I say, okay, Claudella, I'll do it. And she said, last but not least, Tony, I want you to sing Jingle Bells. And I said, wait a minute, Claudella. I said, that's a happy song for a happy occasion. This is a sad occasion, and I don't do jingle bells for funerals. And I've never seen a woman break down and weep like she wept. And she put her arms around me. She said, Tony, she said, when Carl was laying over there in the hospital dying, I promised him that I'd do exactly what he said, and you just gotta sing it. And I said, okay, Claudella, if Jingle Bells is what you want, then that's what you'll get. So, Bill, they took the family in the chapel, and I stood up and I sang, How Great Thou Art. I sat back down. The minister stood up and read the 23rd Psalm. He sat down. I stood up and sung Squire's song, Beulah Land. I sat back down. He stood up, and he had a few kind words to say. He sat back down, and at 20 minutes after 10, I stood over a wooden coffin, and just as sad and mournful as I could sing it, I sang, Jingle bells, jingle bells. I looked out of the corner of my eye. Everybody in that funeral home was going. It got so embarrassing, undertakers went out. When the funeral was over, I got up. The family, they was escorted out, and I went out behind them. They were lining up to get ready to go to the cemetery, and I knew I wasn't going, so I walked over there, and I said, Claudella, I hope everything was okay. Bill, she looked at me, and she said, Tony, that was the best singing I've ever heard. And I said, well, thank you. Is there anything else I can do? She said, I just want you to pray. And I said, well, I'll be glad to pray for you, and I pray that God will give you comfort. She said, Tony, just pray that God will give me rest. She said, since Carl died at the hospital, people's been bringing food, they've been bringing flowers, they've been sending cards. And she said, Tony, I hadn't slept in 3 days, and I just don't know what I was thinking. George, I looked at Claudella and I said, what do you mean you don't know what you's a-thinking? She looked at me and she said, Lord, Tony, that song wasn't Jingle Bells. What I meant to say was, when they ring them golden bells.